Welcome to this session about AIM, the Academy for Impact Through Music. And that is a project which is under the umbrella of the Hilti Foundation. We have Fiona Cunningham, Director of AIM. But actually, to begin the session, I'd like to hand over to Christine Ronberg from the Hilti Foundation. Christine, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Marshall. Good afternoon, everybody. And thank you very much for having us. It's a great pleasure. I hope you can hear me well. Great. So I just wanted to say a few words about where the idea comes from, the idea of AIM, the idea of the Academy of Impact for Impact Through Music. Many of you know the Hilti Foundation, and we know many of you, but maybe you don't all know that we have been active in the field for music for social actions now almost for 15 years. And at the beginning, we have mainly been focusing on projects in their startup phase and in early years, so that the programs could focus on building their structure and program while not having to worry too much about the financial issues, although we have not always been able to finance entire programs, but at least to contribute to it. The financial issues, and we all know that they are among the most challenging subjects, not only at the beginning of a program. We have been working in different continents, South America, South Africa, and Europe. And this has given us the opportunity also to observe the development of programs and especially identify needs and challenges almost all of our programs have been facing. These include the qualification of teachers, the challenges of having learned, for example, one instrument, but having to teach 4 of them. It includes a great lack of cooperation between the projects, because often the daily work consumes all the energy and there is no energy left and space for special activities. And we also often have encountered problems in the operational and economic management of the projects, which in turn have ultimately had also a negative impact on the quality of the program as a whole. Programs that grow too quickly and often just feel the need to deliver positive figures for donors, for sponsors, but forget about the necessary sustainability and then run into big financial problems. These aspects that we have identified in our programs were also confirmed in a large-scale network study by the Community Arts Lab in Vienna, with over 300 programs interviewed. And then there is another idea that's widespread. This is that the focus of the programs is purely on teaching music, based on the assumption that this will do everything we all want in terms of impact from these programs. And that is, from our point of view, one of the most of those points we need to be worked on, to work on. Based on all these observations and conclusions, we at the Hilti Foundation have been thinking about how we could address these challenges so that we can create a positive impact, not just for individual programs, but for an entire sector. Impact, which on the longer term will also lead to systemic change. The result of these reflections is AIM, the Academy for Impact Through Music. With this initiative, we, to say it very clearly, do not want to reinvent the wheel that already exists, but we want to build up on a vast amount of know-how that exists in the entire sector. And we want to develop those aspects that can help programs overcome their challenges and work with a holistic approach to what we are all about. Empowering young people and helping them to become young change makers who are able to take control of their own lives and contribute to society. But this requires, from our point of view, much more than just good music lessons. It takes healthy and well-managed programs. It takes committed, self-critical teachers who are appropriately holistically trained. And it takes, above all, a keen understanding of what we're all trying to achieve with programs and as a sector, a keen understanding of the impact we want to create. For all this to succeed, it needs one thing above all, and this is collaboration. We were able to experience this at its best in our first year, which due to the pandemic, we had to conduct completely online. Those of you who remember the SEYO summer camp in 2018 will remember what we mean when speaking about a holistic approach. The camp Fiona Cunningham has put together mirrored a lot of what AIM is about. And this was one of the main reasons why we at the Hilti Foundation asked her to lead on this project, with all her experience, her visions, and her creativity. Fiona will give you a first glimpse into what our first year has looked like, our lot of learnings, I swear you, and our experience, and what we are going to take forward into our second year as AIM. I would with pleasure like to hand over to Fiona, and I have to excuse myself. So I try to rejoin you from my mobile phone within the next minutes because I have to travel now, but I wish you a very interesting and successful afternoon, and thank you again for having us. Fiona, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Christine. What a fantastic introduction. Thank you for that. First of all, everyone, it's a great pleasure to be here for SEYO SummerFest 2021. I want to congratulate the whole of the Systema Europe team for pulling this together and finding a way to gather virtually and bring so much expertise to the online forum, especially in advance of gathering in person next year. So congratulations and thank you for having us here. Just want to tell you briefly how we're going to run this session. I'm going to give a brief overview of AIM. It's a bit of a test because, you know, amongst friends, this is probably the first time we've communicated more publicly what AIM is doing. So bear with me while I find my feet. I'm also going to welcome some people that are absolutely critical to AIM. I wonder if you can give us a wave. We have Jose, who's one of our inspirational Far Lab leaders from El Sistema Greece. We have Pablo Mianes, who is one of our AIM advisors and one of the founders of Empieza por Educar, which is the Teach for Spain program, and Andre Camacho, who is both the Deputy Director at Nuclear Project and one of our shining firebirds. And of course, we have with us our friends Elisa Soloni, of course, you know, project manager and running absolutely everything here on the ground, and Eric Booth, one of our another inspiring AIM advisors. And then at the end, we're going to have Emily, who is one of our partners at Take Note, who's just going to introduce something that is a bit more relevant to leaders in the sector and something that we really want to offer outwards. So it might give you a first glimpse of what we want to offer leaders in the sector. I'm just going to let somebody in now that I've got co-host rights. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. Let me know if there are any problems with this. Okay, I'm going to go from here. Can everybody see this? Right. This is the Academy for Impact Through Music, quickly establishing itself as AIM. This is our logo, and this is the what I call the wireframe of our website, which is in development at the moment. AIM is an innovation lab for change makers tackling social inequity through music education. Together, we challenge the status quo and transcend boundaries to radically improve learning and expand possibility for young people, especially those in danger of being left behind. And when I say together, I mean that as a sector, not just as an organization. This is our contribution to a future where arts education is recognized as a global right and a vital force for the world. I've put a few questions on the side, which I won't read out, but I will read this one. You know, how strongly does this resonate with you and the work you're doing? Because that's what we're looking for, really, is people who are like-minded, for whom our focus around empowering young people is the same and is shared. Our vision is that as every young person moves into adulthood, they are able to say something along the lines of, I'm able to live a life of personal fulfillment and self-sustainability. In shorthand, we use the word agency to summarize that. Second of all, that I can contribute responsibly to the world and feel part of a community. So community is the other word we use. And I can access and enjoy music for life. And that's where artistry becomes really important. The three strategic areas that AIM is focusing on, as Christine touched on, are 1, teacher training, 2, leadership and program support, and 3, a whole area on impact evidence. We know that this idea of impact is difficult. It's sometimes hard to show our impact, even if we know that it's happening. It's quite an aggressive word, and sometimes the changes that we see are more long-term or they're more nuanced. And I think a lot of programs really struggle either to measure the outcomes that they've had for their learners, or to communicate those, or sometimes to really decide or focus on what the main focus of change is that they want to see in their community. We are not saying that we have all the answers to that, but we're going to put quite a lot of focus on helping other organizations explore this area, and also being quite transparent about our own impact tools and processes, and sharing everything and anything that we can that might support others to become more knowledgeable in this area. So who have we been working with for the last year and a half? 10 inspirational social music programs and their inspirational leaders and teams around the world. You will recognize a number of these. Some of these people are in the room with us. And we have been starting our teacher training with 30 teachers from these programs. We've called this program the Firebird Fellowship. The idea being that the Firebird has to go through an enormous trial of growth and challenge, and sometimes having to burn things to the ground and start again and rise up through difficult times. Teaching is difficult, and it takes extraordinary spirit, passion, and ability to keep reflecting and learning and growing. And the fellowship idea is that we don't have to do it alone, and we're better when we are learning from and supporting one another. Firebirds, we look for a people with pioneering mindset, who are hungry learners, who are aligned with our mission. They have a collegiate spirit, and they want other teachers to be effective and supported and inspirational, and they're going to have an impact, a positive impact in their communities. We also have an inspiring core team of AIM advisors, and we work with a wide range of experts in a wide range of fields, wherever we can find them. If we feel that they have something to offer, there are some people in this room as well that are part of that inspirational team. And you can see here that we have people from education. Ruben Moore is the Director of Learning at Teach First in England, which is not a music program, but is absolutely dedicated to eradicating educational inequality. And then real change maker artists like Maren Alstott or Joseph Conyers, who lead their own social programs, as well as our more core team. Right, I think it'd be nice for me to stop talking, and I wonder if we could play this short video so you can meet some of our Firebirds. Actually, this was from last year, after our first residency of 40 hours of online learning together. Elisabetta, might you play that?
Yeah, you just have to stop your sharing so that I can share. Okay, thank you very much. Just a moment. Okay.
Thank you very, very much for letting me be part of this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you. Obrigada.
Thank you very much.
All right, who's feeling brave?
pick out one juicy something that excited you with potential for your work, your program.
¿Alcanzan a ver la mano?
Make sure you get those hands down. I see some hands up here. Let's get it really bent.
Slow or as quickly as feels good.
The world got smaller, closer, and our hearts, I believe, got bigger. The Firebird Fellowship is like a superhero academy. It is a real one.
We can communicate no matter the age. We can communicate no matter the place. So it's basically limitless somehow.
I truly believe that these days in AIM have awakened in me again this craving for changing the world and to be actively part of this transformation that is happening in the music education field.
Thank you, AIM, for an incredible experience and for re-sparking my interest and intentionality behind teaching. I'm so excited to get this year started.
You have like the outline of the face and the shading.
Yeah. With the drawing of Yanis being drawn.
You're amazing, amazing.
Every time you have to use it for a different group, you have to change something sometimes. So you end up editing and editing and editing, which is nice. I mean, at some point, it gives the student the perspective that this arrangement is specially made for them.
Creo que lo que hacemos es importante, pero cuando lo hacemos juntos de la mano es relevante y tiene un gran impacto social. Somos el final de la música como un privilegio y el principio de la música como un derecho universal.
What you saw is complete physical freedom, right, in the dancers, doing something that has been a part of them for as long as they can remember. How do we find that when we hold an instrument as well?
Negrita, ven, prende la vela, que va a empezar la cumbia más bella.
With the beautiful things, I have learned so much how to plan, how to be creative, how to the tips to give classes, how to be a leader, what kind of leader I am.
In any art form, whether we're performers or we're teachers or we're even somehow related to it, so much of it is about uniqueness.
I don't know how I say something like, it's not that you are bad students, it's that I made a mistake as a teacher, so I will change everything I'm telling you. And then they understand it and they take it, you know, fun and dynamic.
All right, let's make some more music here.
This is for sure an experience that will remain always in my heart.
Hey, we are ready now to begin September all together to do our research and to make the world a better place. I'm going to swim. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Tengan buena semana.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Bye.
Vayan a la playa.
Muchas gracias.
This is what we do when we love something. Yeah. You know, you have no idea how powerful these little notes have been as a way of finding a human connection. It's been beautiful. So there are some of our amazing Firebirds, and what a journey they've been on. Goodness, it's been such a challenge for them. And we've been extraordinarily proud of everything that they've achieved. I was going to carry on my presentation here, but I wonder if this is a nice time to actually, I can come back to that. And maybe actually this is a nice time to hear from Andre and Jose and Pablo and Eric also. I wanted to say, first of all, do you want to say anything unprompted before I take control and ask you some leading questions that tee you up in the direction I want you to go in? Okay, so Andre, Jose, and where's our dear Pablo? If you can wave, that would be great. Okay, I wanted to ask you, and you have to discipline yourselves. I don't want to pick people. I wanted to ask you one key thing that has changed for you as a teacher, a leader, a team, or an individual as a result of your engagement with AIM this year?
I can start. Well, just for the audience here, my role during this year has been, apart from working with the AIM core team, accompanying some of our Firebirds in this fellowship. And I think one of the things that truly changed was in myself was to see how many of the things that I have been working in other spheres, like the regular classroom work that I'm used to do at like other organizations where I participate or that I've been an active part of, that training, that support, that work with teachers from very different subjects can be absolutely translated to this world of music without without any tension at all, right? And I could see how the change is possible, how the improvement was huge, right, on these Firebirds. And I was really impressed in the sense that this model that Fiona and Christine imagined a year ago or 2 years ago was actually possible, right? So I guess my sense of possibility raised quite a bit during this year. I don't want to take much time because many things happened, but this will be my first thoughts.
I think that as a leader, the first thing that AIM gave to me was like a support group. I have to say, I am quite new. I was quite new at the moment in this work, in this position, and I felt a lot of issues that I didn't have the experience on how to solve, or a lot of thinking to do. And then AIM for me was an open door to share these problems and to receive a lot of solutions, but also feel that I am not alone, and that a lot of programs sometimes share the same challenges. And then we could really gather and find solutions together. I think this is what AIM has become to me, is really an open family where I can come and really receive answers to many things. And then also in terms of the organization, what I could say is that, of course, our marvelous 3 Firebirds with myself, because I have kind of and also a Firebird kind of situation. We were learning a lot and then applying this in the organization. And when I saw how the classes are changing, and you see the impact on the students, then you realize we started a kind of team culture and a kind of way of thinking that was also generating a ripple effect in the different teachers of El Sistema Gris that are not yet part of AIM. Even though they have not been actively part of the academy, they were getting as well this mindset and this thinking, and their classes were also transforming in this way. So I think that as an organization, I could really see, even as indirect beneficiaries, it really made an impact in the way that we do our activities.
Hi everyone. For me personally, although I agree with everything that Pablo and Jose said, especially that part of being able to share our difficulties with our colleagues, our leaders, with everyone, and just get that feedback. It's something that in music education is very rare, especially to be able to have an open space to share. It was unbelievable. But if I had to choose a key thing, I would probably say it's the way that I realized how much impact my work had, whether before I was probably going to teach music lessons. AIM made me just see things from a different perspective and understand that actually it is possible to change lives through teaching music. There's certain key moments that can change a kid's mentality or attitude towards life. And in a lot of moments when we were analyzing teaching moments, I realized, okay, this this has impact, this can make a change. So yeah, for me, that was it personally.
Andre, since you are my Firebird, or I have the privilege of being your AIM advisor, would you mind just briefly telling everybody in just a few words how we work together, what you meant about us analyzing your practice?
Yes, so in the starting stage was more about talking about what sort of change we wanted to have, what pillars we wanted to base our new method that was going to be on trial. But the analyzing was basically, we worked mainly from organizing lesson plans, each lesson being having a specific plan for what we wanted to work on that lesson. Then we would film that lesson, and then we would analyze it together, me and Fee and me and other leaders, and then with everyone together as well, and spot some good things of that lesson, some bad things, how it could be improved, what could have gone differently. Yeah, and with Fiona as well, it's mainly reflection, really reflecting of all the time. What are you struggling with? What are you feeling comfortable with? Why are you feeling this? What can you do to improve that? So yeah, a lot of video analysis and reflecting.
Thank you, Andre. Eric, would you like to say anything at this point?
Yes, a few things. First, in response to Christine's initial beautifully worded response to why AIM was started, in a more pedestrian way, I would say seeing a field grow over 10 and 15 years, this heroic energy practice around the world, and we weren't getting better. We were lousy at field learning. So we weren't advancing very well. And AIM provides an opportunity to pull the best of what we have learned, concentrate it, and actually begin to develop ways of bringing into most promising practices for accomplishing the social change through music goals. And I would say after a hard first learning year, movement has been made. And I want to mention just 3 features that everyone should know about because they're distinctive to AIM. The first is, and both Andre and Jose made reference to this, we have consistent foundations. We actually have established 5 key pillars that we propose. If we aim toward these pillars, in fact, all of our work in all the different settings gets better and heads in the right direction. And we've got 3 aspects under each of those 5 pillars. So we have a way to work consistently across all programs. Second, we've created a laboratory environment. Instead of just delivering service frantically, as we tend to do in reality, we have created an experiment zone where we can try to get better, learn together, and actually create the feeling of discovery rather than just delivery. And finally, I want to mention that we brought a kind of rigor into a field that has been kind of pull it together as we can. There's been mention of impact measurement. There's been mention of specifying goals and determining whether we're achieving them. And that kind of rigor has been absent from our field for all its passion, for all the assets that it brings. It has lacked the rigor that enables it to grow in strength and clarity. So those are the kind of foundations that have let AIM become such a hopeful step forward for our field. And we've been delighted to see so much movement from the Firebirds and the FAR Lab leaders in the process.
Thank you so much, Eric. So beautifully put, as ever. I wonder whether any of you would like to share with the group either one sort of hope and aspiration for AIM as we move forward, or one kind of burning question that you would ask the sector or ask our sector colleagues or anybody else here?
After we have been talking and really getting the idea of AIM, and I thank you very much, Eric, for this very precise. I think these three key features you have explained really are very indicative of what we are doing with AIM. I would like to ask everybody in the room that has experience with social programs, if after listening to this initiative and understanding, what are your first impressions about this, and what are the challenges that you have in your programs that you think an initiative like AIM could help you resolving or finding a way of contributing to resolving this issue. So this is my question to everyone in the room. After hearing such an initiative, what are the challenges you think AIM could contribute to solve?
Feel free, anybody, if you want to write anything in the chat box, if it arrives, or you can contact us later if you have anything, and maybe we'll take those questions. Just hold that thought, Werner and Marshall, if that's okay, and we'll come back to them at the end, if that's all right. Great. Anybody else? Thank you, Jose. Great questions.
I want to share hope, because as Jose was saying on his prior intervention, one thing that we've seen is how many Firebirds and Fire Labs have started to share what they've been learning on the fellowship with other teachers, other members of their organizations, right? Which are not currently in the fellowship, right? But they thought that they could benefit from this, and this is, I think, it is a hope and also something that we would love to achieve, right? How this could become, as Christine was saying at the beginning, a systemic change initiative, right? So that it does not only stay within the Firebirds that are part of it, but these Firebirds, once they are done with the fellowship or even during the fellowship, right, can, as a drop of oil, right, can work with other teachers, can expand their work and create this systemic impact. I think it is more than a hope. I really expect it is a reality, and it will be a reality, like in the near future. But like this is something that I would really like seeing from AIM.
Yeah, if I may share, it's also a hope, but it's or like a confession really, but it's really, AIM really did change the way that a whole bunch of teachers were working and thinking, and it changed for the better for sure. And if we manage to do this with 10 different programs without being able to be together with all the difficulties that we've been through the past year, AIM was definitely a light that brought hope for a better future. And especially for me that have been involved in the past as well with Systema Europe, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. Now, after AIM, I just feel that I could keep giving more and more and more, and I just want everyone to be able to go through that and become better as well, because it really is life-changing. So thank you, Fee, and thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Eric, a hope or a question for the sector that comes out of this?
Yeah, my hope is this notion of a program as a laboratory catches on. There is, it transforms what we do. It transforms the feel of what we do. And if we keep our eyes on the right prizes for our young people and have a lab where we as colleagues can bring our challenges, try out things, bring our discoveries, I think we transform the feel of a program. And that is the feeling I hope spreads, any more than any specific practices that may get developed. I think every program is capable of advancing itself if we can make that feel of a faculty and a program as a lab. So that's my fondest hope.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to just share a couple more slides, a little bit to show a bit more of our process and our findings, build on the things that my wonderful colleagues have just mentioned. Then I'm going to hand over to Emily to mention about part of our leadership support strand, a pilot project we've started with Take Note called Power Hours. So I'm just going to share the screen and then we'll take some questions at the end. Sorry, where we go. Can I do that? Does that work, everybody? Give me a thumbs up. Great. Okay, so Eric mentioned the 5 pillars, and the first 2 are holistic development, which is really seeing the whole person, not as a function of an orchestra only, but as the unique individual they are, with all their assets, hopes, dreams, things they're struggling with, etc., and to base our teaching and learning around that. The second one being around intrinsic motivation, a sort of essential mechanism for all the other things that happen, something that Eric talks a lot about, what sits within us, our own individual why for the reasons that we're learning. And these 3, artistry, agency, and community, are 3 that we use as shared language. I've just put some questions up here on the side. In our work today, what does our stretch in these areas look like? You know, we as a group agreed with the music programs that we all want young people to stretch as far as they possibly can, musically and artistically, in terms of their community contributions and the way that they feel accepted and embraced by the people around them, and their agency, their ability to make decisions, to have empowered choices, to lead on their lives. And one of the questions that we ask ourselves is, how can we all be part of this? As Eric said, you know, are our teachers able to stretch as far as possible in these areas? How about us as leaders, as managers? How about organizations? What have funders looked at their own work in this way? So that we try to find simple shared language for the quite complex and different contexts we work in. And we find that having a little bit of shared language is very, very powerful. It gives us common areas to find places of commonality and also difference. So this is something actually that's been created. This is a sneak preview of something that's been created for our residency that we've got next week. I like this image because, can you see my writing, or is that picture of you? Oh, there we go, that's better. I like this image because this for me is an example of an expert teaching artist in another art form, the visual arts, Barbara Ellman, enabling our Firebirds to flex their own artistry, their own sense of agency and autonomy in very restricted context when we were all in lockdown, and their feeling of being part of something. And one of the things that we like to do at AIM is try and step out of our music bubble to go back deeper into it and to take inspiration from the strategies of anybody that is doing great teaching and learning, especially those in other art forms as well as in music. This is the geeky bit for those of you that like to see sort of statistics and things. It's a framework for our teaching and learning that Eric just mentioned, the 5 pillars with the 3 aspects inside. And this is about helping our teachers to track their own teaching progress, spot patterns where they might need further development or areas of great strength. And it's not about judgment, it's about empowering teachers to reflect on what they're doing well, what they can do better to develop their own practice. This little screenshot here is an example of something that we're quite proud of. It's called the Firebird Cafe. It's a low cost, potentially high impact way for teachers to share teaching strategies and challenges in their own peer-to-peer context without supervision. So this one is led by Orchestra Geração, and they've led a peer-to-peer learning cafe. And these sessions have started to take shape in a way that's quite exciting, because teachers all over the world are actually sharing their strategies and asking for ideas. And that can be done by anyone. Every time we find something that is working or that we think could work for more people, we're going to try and spread that as far as we possibly can. And at the same time, we want to engage with best practices that exist in the sector. So it's porous. It's not about AIM having all the best practices. It's about us finding where good practices already are, celebrating them and getting them to as many other people that can find them useful as possible. We have our 2 first physical residencies coming up this summer, one in partnership with Illumina Music, which is very exciting, in the second part of August, and the Firebird Fellowship is starting next week, when we're actually going to gather all our Firebirds and Fire Lab leaders in person. Very excited about that. And finally, I've stolen this from our dear friends and colleagues at the Community Arts Network. I like this graphic because it's about connection, and it's about all the expertise and how people share their learning with each other. Solving the world's biggest problems takes ensembles, not soloists. And so we have been working in partnership with a number of extraordinary leaders in their own fields. We've worked with Global Leaders Program this year on a theory of change module to see if we can integrate that into our work. We are working with Take Note, and I'm about to hand over to Emily. We've been working and talking to Reina Sofia in Madrid and Longi School of Music, and a number of organizations where we want to see if we can collaborate and get their great work out even further. So what next for you all? If our mission is yours, and if empowering young people through music and strengthening our field really matters to you too, get in touch with us. We don't have immediate offers for the sector yet because we're still in innovation mode. We are going to, as we head into the end of this year and into 2022, but we are starting to ask people to engage with us and reach out and express your interest if you want to be part of our community, or if you have something powerful to offer through AIM to your colleagues. So thank you very, very much. I'm going to stop screen sharing now. How do I do that? Elisabetta, could Emily take over at this point? I'm going to hand over to Emily to just talk briefly about our power hours. And then if we've got a couple of minutes, we'll take a few questions. Emily, do you think you can wrap this up in 7 minutes?
I think I can do 5.
Oh, you're a superstar. Well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fee, and thank you all for having me and for hosting this. It's so exciting to hear what AIM has been up to over the last year and to be part of it as well. I will just share my own screen so that I can give you a taste of what we at Take Note have been working on with AIM. So, oh, wrong thing. Here we are. So this little presentation is about a strand of work that Take Note, which I am the co-director of, which is a catalyst for collaboration and social change, have been working on together with AIM. And this is part of the leadership support strand that Fiona and Eric have been talking about. And we are developing together this Power Up leadership program, which we ultimately envisage being, as Eric was describing, a laboratory which is constantly developing and exploring what's possible in terms of supporting leaders and their teams in social change music organizations to develop really strong good practice in their approaches across the kind of strategic running of their organizations, and embedding foundations that will enable them to achieve the greatest possible impact with their young people now and long into the future. And we're aware that the reason that this Power Up programme was born is that we're very aware that obviously having strong strategic foundations is incredibly important to maximising that impact, but that it can take a huge amount of time and energy in very capacity stretched organisations to find that support, to fundraise for it, and it can be very expensive to bring specialist support into an organisation. And it can also just be hard to prioritise. So we eventually imagine Power Up to have a range of strategic courses and training, to be offering coaching and mentoring, to be developing the incredible peer-to-peer learning that's been happening in the Firebird Fellowship for the leaders of these music for social change organisations as well, and to deliver power hours, which is where we're starting our focus. And power hours are essentially, as I've said, like a super satisfying workout with a trainer. So they're bringing a specialist in a particular strategic area into a music for social change organisation and offering 10 hours of bespoke support, advice, coaching, mentoring, grappling with a strategic challenge that a particular organisation is having. And through those 10 hours, developing a really tangible output, whether it's a new fundraising strategy or a theory of change impact map for an organisation, across a whole range of strategic areas that you can see listed here, to really focus in on where AIM and that organisation and the specialists think that the maximum amount of impact can be had in order to achieve the strongest possible support for the leaders of these organisations, to enable them to co-create and understand the approaches and the tools that they could be using to maximise their strategic strength and their sustainability, and thereby to have the greatest possible impact on their young people. And we've developed these power hours to create a framework that brings in the rigour that Eric was talking about. So often there are ways of leaders and teams being able to access strategic support, but not necessarily in a very kind of strategic way. And so the power hours structure is a defined kind of process of identifying strategic challenge, identifying a specialist that can really help with this strategic challenge, delivering the 10 power hours in a kind of structured but bespoke way, and then crucially, as Fee was saying, evaluating the impact of this and identifying at the start what the impact of that is intended to be and how the evidence for that impact can be found, and then looking at that at the end and understanding where that impact has been and how, as we develop the pilot, the power hours can have the maximum possible impact for these organisations. And as we're in very much in laboratory phase, we are currently working with Acción por la Música, El Sistema Greece, Yola and the Nucleo project to work on this first pilot, but we really want to be able to open this up as widely as we possibly can. So as Fiona was saying, if you're interested in undertaking power hours eventually, in knowing more about the Power Up programme, in knowing how you could engage with AIM as a leader or part of a team of a music for social change organisation, or just want to know more, then I'll pop in the chat Fiona's email address again, and we would love to hear from you. Fee, is there anything you want to add to that before I wrap up?
No, that was beautifully succinct. Thank you so much, Emily, and thank you for your amazing work on this.
It's been a real pleasure to collaborate with you, and it's wonderful to meet you all, so thank you.
Okay, we've run a tiny bit over time, but we have 6 minutes left. If there are any burning questions, or Werner and Marshall, you had to hold a thought while I continued. So does anybody want to ask us any questions or make any comments?
Whilst people maybe frame that, the thing, you kind of talked about what might be useful from this so far. And I was thinking, in a lot of programs, everybody's so busy up against it that I really loved Eric's, experimental laboratory space. And actually, it seems to me it's just absolutely vital for organizations to protect some space for that. Now, if you're going into that area in quite a lot of detail, one thing that would be incredibly useful would be almost like a kind of laboratory kit, which you could produce, where programs don't even maybe have to do that, some of that initial thinking. You give them a structure, and I think it's much easier for programs if they say, okay, we're going to do whatever it is of this, and by the way, here's a starting point. Because actually, I think what's lacking for a lot of us is headspace. So if we can rob some of that laboratory headspace structure from you, I think that's something it would be really interesting for you to kind of package and offer out to everybody. That's just an initial thought.
I love what you just said, and actually, just to kind of reassure you that we're thinking in the same direction, one of our ideas about power hours is to buy time. So to offer small kind of grants of time to reflect, time to plan, time to meet as teachers. And actually next week, we've tried to create, I don't know, Firebirds and Fire Lab leaders, you're going to have to tell us how it is in reality. But next week, we've designed it in a way that's meant to be based on what we call a flipped classroom environment, whereby actually there's quite a lot of space for programs and leaders to come with their agendas and to use everybody else as a resource, rather than us driving the agenda and expecting that one size fits all. So I'm hoping that some of that will be created next week, but for sure, I'm interested in the use of the power hours to make that a sort of actual time investment in time.
Yeah, great, great. Verna, did you have something you wanted to talk about?
Okay, so it was actually going to the same direction you were saying, Marshall, about because now I'm thinking for 2 programs where I'm sort of going back and forth with France and Finland, and especially with Finland. Now I know that we, like other programs too, would have plenty of things to share and good practices, but first to begin with, we would need to have maybe this, what you were saying, this survival pack, what was it, to know what you've gone through, so that we don't ask the same questions, and in the same time know what would be the things that we could bring in. You know, I would just feel like to know what we could do, what we could learn, how could we participate, and then to lead to an exchange. So, and this is just for, I'm speaking for one program, which is the Finnish program, but I know it would be the same for the France and the French program. So maybe for many other programs, it would be the same then too.
Thanks, Verna. Yes, we are launching our website and our first sort of ways of engaging with the world in the coming couple of months. And then it is absolutely our intention that we'll have very clear ways of engaging, rather than just sort of saying these are the things we're doing and keeping it quite general. For example, if I focus on our impact areas, the first area of impact we're going to be looking at is negative impact, and looking at safeguarding. And then going on from there, we'll be looking at the issue of youth voice, how young people own their narrative, and, you know, are the primary spokespeople for the changes that they've experienced. And the third area of impact will be about pathways and what is true equity. How do young people who are in danger of being left behind fall through the gaps? So those are kind of going to be our impact areas. But, you know, these 3 topics of teacher training, leadership development and support, and sort of focus on impact in particular, we will come, you know, after these quite intensive summer residencies, we'll come back to our colleagues in the field with much clearer proposals about how we can get, you know, involved with each other. So I hope that's sort of also reassuring, Verna, and I really look forward to talking to you. I know you've got so much wisdom and expertise to share, so we'll look forward to that. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Fee. Anybody else want to quickly come on? We're almost at 4 o'clock, but that's fine. That doesn't matter. I just wondered if anybody else had anything they wanted to kind of throw in here at this stage. whether an Amite or not. I mean, it's been a really interesting session, actually. And Fee, you know, it's great to hear you just begin to share some of what you're doing, in obviously in a very brief way in this manner. And it'd be really interesting to hear just briefly from you, what's the current time scale for how you are now kind of thinking of moving in the next year or so?
Thanks, Marshall. So in terms of teacher training, there are two kind of main ways we're looking at that. One is the next Firebird cohort, which is going to be a small sort of hand-picked group of change makers from the field. That's going to be at the end of this year. Then at the same time, we're sort of developing a lighter touch toolkit, actually, rather along the lines you mentioned, for teachers. And we're going to be working with the Firebirds and the Fire Lab leaders, people like Jose, people like Andre, to work out what are sort of the lighter touch, more efficient ways of supporting many more teachers. So hopefully we're going to have a slightly more structured offer at the beginning of next year for that. In terms of leadership development, once this initial pilot is through with Emily and Take Note and Mariana, we will be then launching a proper mechanism for that, how programs can apply. That will be much more open source insofar as there'll be an application process for those power hours and some criteria for who's eligible for that. And then in terms of sort of impact, we will be launching the first area of focus, which is around safeguarding, in the autumn. And then that will be very much probably a series of think-ins or kind of innovation labs with the sector to discuss those, working with other sector coordinators like Systema Europe and others for whom this is an important topic, and seeing basically what innovations could be created that AIM is well placed to lead on, and also making sure that we don't overlap with others who are leading on good work in that area. So when the website launches in the early autumn, there'll also be more lighter touch ways of people engaging, whether it's that we've got resources or things to share outwards, or whether we're asking for pieces of expertise or organizations and teachers to feed in some of their best practices. Does that give you a sense of?
That's great. Actually, it begins to show how that will go, and I think it's really interesting to hear the kind of way all this is going to cascade out. I mean, obviously, you've not been going that long, so you want to refine what you're doing a little bit before that side. But I mean, always, Systema Europe is here as a kind of voice box to send out, whatever you want to do, whatever information you need to want to get out. So we're a little bit past 4. That wasn't too bad. The previous session also ran on a tiny bit. Our next session begins with El Sistema Venezuela at 4:30 CET, always, for any of you guys in Portugal or the UK or elsewhere. And that was really interesting. It's great. It's really been a useful session to hear all of that, what's going on, and great to hear from Jose and all the rest of you. Great.
You want to do this to the team. You're all absolutely amazing. Elisa hasn't said anything, but I'm really so grateful to everything that she and her team do. And yeah, sorry.
Yeah, as I say, Elisa often doesn't have to say anything. We know she's there and we can see the smile.
So thank you all. Thank you, Emily. Thank you.
Great. And thanks also to Christine coming along at the beginning. We know what car connections are like. So thank you very much, everybody. That's a great session, and look forward to seeing any of you at the next session at 4:30. Keep well.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Good energy.